The meeting of September 25th of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. And introduction starting on my far right with Katie.
Kathleen Baker.
Dustin Moyes.
Sean Datchler.
Dan Tupper.
Bob Burns.
Lisa Normand.
Joyce Gifford.
Roger Politis.
And Scott Archer, staff.
Thank you. Approval of minutes. We have two sets of minutes. I guess we consider those one at a time. The first one is for June 26th. I assume you've all had a chance to peruse the minutes of June 26th. The chair will entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
I second.
Moved and second to approve the minutes of June 26th. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. The next minutes, July 24th. That was our parks tour. The chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
Moved and second that we approve the minutes for July 24th. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion's approved. Item number 4 on the agenda is time for comments from citizens on issues and items not on the agenda. Do we have any person or persons that would like to address the committee? I guess not. Now we have presentations. Item 5. Scott, do you want to?
Sure, I'll give you an intro on that.
Thank you.
Good evening, committee and guests. So we've got a couple of presentations for you tonight to start the meeting, and the first of which is going to be an update on the library project. And we're excited to hear this report. Of course, there are, in addition to the building itself, we'll have some park issues to discuss. We've been talking about this off and on for a while. So I'm gonna turn it over to our library director, Maureen Cole, who will talk about that and also introduce the other folks that will be speaking to you about this.
Great. Good evening, and thank you for allowing us to be on your agenda tonight. I was here about, a year or several months ago to kind of say, heads up, I'm coming, and I hear you've been talking about it. You know, it's not just a library project, it's also a park project, since we're going to be taking up some library space, and we want to be very sensitive to it as much as possible because people really use that space. So what we wanted to do was kind of update you about where we are and where we might be headed and get some feedback from you. So tonight I have Kurt Lango, who is our landscape architect here, and you may know Kurt from other work that you've done, which is great because then he's got the Oregon City context really well in mind. And then Joan Jasper is with Scott Edwards Architecture, and she's our architect on the project along with Sid Scott. And so we've been working with these guys, getting all set up and doing a whole bunch of community outreach as far as going out to all the neighborhood associations and trying to get feedback from people about what they want in the library, what they expect to see in the library, how they feel about the park, all that. And from all that context, Scott Edwards, we call him SEA for short, they put together 5 site options, site design options that just placed the addition, in the park. Is it going to be right directly behind the Carnegie building, centered, 2-story, or is it going to be off to one side? Is it going to do this? Is it going to do that? Before we get into schematic design, we need to site the building and know how it will impact the existing building and impact the park. So we had 5 options. 2 of them were very, very similar to the options that our architects, THA, who had helped us conceive of what a building in the park could potentially look like in the very beginning, which helped us build on the idea of building there at all. 2 of them looked very much like that, and one of them was a 2-story centered behind the existing building. And then the other one that was similar to the original 3 that had been designed was a long rectangle centered also behind the existing building. So we had those options, and then in addition to that, we had a curved 2-story, which kind of honored the trees that were not elms, which, because the elm trees, as you know all about the elm trees, don't need to tell you guys about the elm trees. And then we had one version that was a one-story, that was kind of an L around the building that we called a wrap. And then we went so far as to have an underground version. So then we went and had a couple of meetings, and we got a lot of feedback from the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association that they liked the one story, or that could be conceivably okay, but it impacted the playground area of the park too much. So that was the one that came over towards 6th Street. So what we did was we created a reverse of that went over towards 7th Street. So now we have 6 options. So we brought those 6 options, which is a lot of options, and obviously we have to whittle it down to one at some point in time, right? So we brought those 6 options to a work session with the city commission because they had not seen all these options or the presentation up till that point. So that was on September the 9th. And at that meeting, we went through all the options and talked about the pros and cons of all the options and asked them if there was any informal consensus on any of the options. And the ones that they liked, remember this was not a decision or anything, but it was informal consensus. The ones that they liked the most were the 2-story option centered behind the Carnegie, just like the one we saw way back when, and the L-shaped wrap that was towards 6th Street, because that takes advantage of the flat ground over there, but it does impact the playground area. All of the options that they created left the spray park intact. So that's not what we're really talking about completely. It'll come up, but it left that intact. And so, but they said, what we would like you to do is go back and study those 2 options and do a little bit more work on option 1, because that showed it as only having one entrance. And you'll see the pictures of all this, but I just kind of want to give you some context. And what would that look like if we added an entrance on the 6th Street side? And then the other option, the 1-story, what are some playground ideas that we could mitigate, taking up that playground space? So we're going to present those options, the work that we've done on that next week, but you get a preview and you get to see that tonight. Because we just wanted to be here, no matter where we were in the process, we wanted to be here tonight to start talking to you about park impacts. So that kind of sets the stage for where we are. We're trying to whittle it down, and we're trying to get as much good feedback as we can on the project so that we don't just lumber into a bunch of stuff that's never going to make it through site review, not going to make anybody happy. We want to do the best we can, and so this is the information gathering part. So with that, does that set the context all right? More or less?
well.
Okay,
Very
great.
well put.
So why don't you guys take it away
All right.
and give these guys something to look at so they're...
Oh, reminder to the committee there's a little toggle switch on the left of your screen at the bottom. Just switch it where it says presentation to the left, and it'll switch to what is on the screen behind you. Except for you, Kathleen, that one doesn't have that. You get to look at the big
Good,
pictures.
thank you.
For being late.
Everybody find that okay? We don't use that.
She gets the big.
I know, we're getting fancy tonight. We don't in library board either. Yeah.
Can we dim the lights a little? I guess
Oh, sure.
everybody's really looking at their monitors.
Yeah,
right?
it's more, yeah.
It's for the
It's
audience. We have a hard
pretty
time.
well dimmed here, but let me see if we can get it.
Well, like-
Oh, it was
Wrong way,
the other one.
wrong way, sorry, hold
You're
on.
fine.
Yeah, I think it was set at the right.
Perfect.
I think that's
There we
about
go,
as good
that's
as it's
good.
going to
Thank
get.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Scott. So like Maureen said, we kind of tried to do our due diligence. We kind of looked at all the different pieces. We looked at the park in general, the library, in specific. We looked at the health of the trees. We looked at what had preceded us, what the public had seen. So we were, very conscientious about showing the 2-story scheme and kind of the 1-story bar, and then getting feedback. The 2-story scheme works best for the park, in terms of it has the least amount of footprint, but it probably has the most impact on the Carnegie. And one of the first and foremost requirements from a historic registry side is that the addition be subordinate. So, even though it takes, less square, less footprint in the park, it's actually kind of bigger in mass. And then it also kind of has staffing issues. It creates a full 2-story library, and then with a small kind of basement level, which kind of creates a 3-story. We're using the basement as program space within the overall square footage that the program is showing. But because of all the kind of different requirements, this is still, we're still looking at this because of the fact that it does, impact the park the least and probably the playground the least. And so you can see it here, and this scheme right here is showing kind of a 1 to 20 ramp, which would alter, kind of the front area, and then again, this is very schematic, and then a more, a larger stair, that you would come up to kind of the ramp landing and then into the Carnegie. So this would be the central, the central entry for the new library. And as Mo said, then from the input we got, we looked at this one without kind of really changing the front area and creating an entry off of 6. We can get a drop-off area, we can get a book drop area, we could potentially get some handicap space, and it leaves, the 3/4 of the south side of the park kind of alone, and that's the spray park and existing swing and slide.
So all amenities stay in this one.
Yes. And so what we have to kind of support that, I thought I had opened them, excuse me. We have but not visible. So then we have these little SketchUp models that kind of show what the massing and the and relationship to the Carnegie is on site. So here's the 2-story. This would be from John Adams and 6th. So you can see the 2-story, it's kind of got a more kind of classical or traditional base, and then kind of thinking of a tree house with the 2nd story having more glass, kind of nestled up in the trees. Here's the spray park, the slide, and then you can start seeing the ramp coming here. And we did a 1 to 20 ramp because we were thinking, and this is the view from John Adams in 7th, but we did a very low slope ramp so we would not have to have railings. Because if you're at 1 in 12 or 8% and not 5, then you will have to have railings. And we're really trying to still keep kind of the integrity of the historical front of the Carnegie. And there's been a lot of discussion with the 1-story and the ramp that as you ramp up, to the Carnegie, which is about 4 feet higher than the sidewalk, what you do is you decrease the visibility of the classical base to the building, and then in fact makes it look much smaller. So, because it's a American Renaissance building, it has a base, it has a middle, and it has its cornice or entablature. And with historic review, they'll be looking at those features and making sure that those features are still very prominent. So that's kind of one issue with the ramp. So then we looked at the idea of leaving the front alone and then kind of putting the emphasis, the entry back off of 6th. So again, kind of off of, 6th Avenue and John Adams Street, you've got the plaza here. So then it allows the front to remain the same for the Carnegie.
Would there still be access from the front of the Carnegie? Or would that be closed off?
There would be access. We would think that it would either be, it could be fiction, it could be a meeting room, but it would probably be more egress than access. It could be after-hour access. but you wouldn't have ADA. So you're still going to have to share some functions with the entry to meet code.
Mm.
So then, kind of from there, this is what Mo was referring to as the wrap. And we thought maybe courtyard sounded a little bit better. So as we whittle down the schemes, we're
changing names.
We're changing names a little bit, but the idea, and again, it's both how the library would function as a one-story, how it relates to the Carnegie in terms of kind of its symmetry and balance, and being kind of subordinate. So we've kind of tried to set up this rhythm with this being the prominent facade. This, so say that's A, kind of as a rhythm. This would kind of repeat and balance it. And then the new entry, which is in the courtyard, kind of balances the projection that you have towards 7th to keep the facade balanced. So, and then this also, for library planning, it's really nice to come in more to the center of a library and then finger out, to the different programs, whether they're meeting, fiction, children's, teens, makerspace, that kind of thing. And again, this one was showing, so it's, as you can see, the wrap that creates the courtyard is coming south. And when we met with the McLaughlin neighborhood and their concerns for the playground, we are kind of showing the slide and swings to the front of the spray park in this particular instance. So then, thinking that, we don't quite have the clearances, there's been discussion that once the slide and swing are moved, that they will probably, fall apart and don't meet kind of the safety requirements that are in place today for play area. So Kurt, we kind of looked with the same footprint, and then maybe a spray park that related, more to the geometry of the new addition and the Carnegie, as well as organize the space so that you could even add to the play area. And so this is kind of this is the revised scheme for this.
Why don't you go into into the SketchUp model and I'll talk
All
while
right.
you drive.
All right.
We know that the existing play equipment is kind of near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. The fact of the matter, though, is that they don't currently meet current safety standards in terms of play equipment, and that's particularly important if you think about moving any of the pieces, that even if you move them, there's no ability to upgrade them to meet current standards. So that's not to say that we couldn't get a real cool slide, maybe that high, but it would have to meet current safety standards. The other thing is that we know that it was just a couple years ago that you went through a renovation for the spray park, and we were actually involved a little bit in that, in helping prepare some of the documents. And so we have to be mindful of the money that has been spent on that. But at the same time, if you begin to think about the new addition as a 100-year building and what's happening 100 years from now, we began to think about the spray park and could you do it in such a way that it becomes multi-use? So when it's off, it just doesn't look like a bowl with a big concrete ledge around it. We've done a number of spray parks around the area with the bubblers coming up that you've probably seen, that when they're off, they become these kind of urban spaces or spaces that you could have festivals in. So I think as we began to think about the courtyard scheme, we saw it as a real opportunity to maybe introduce new play equipment and to re-envision that existing spray pad.
And what we could do, so because there was a lot of discussion on the playground and kind of keeping the visibility, keeping that kind of south side very active, and
it already open down there on the bottom?
Yeah, I don't, maybe it's, nope. But here's, well, let's look at, these will open.
This is a project that we did in downtown Sherwood, kind of Old Town, just a number of years ago. And I think it just kind of illustrates the way that you can create a space that is kind of multi-use. They actually have movie nights here, just a variety of festivals. And if you can imagine that kind of stone seating there being next to the library, it becomes almost kind of an amphitheater like space. So when the water's off, there's the plays that happen and different activities. So it was just one idea that we were kind of thinking in terms of that space. The other thing which I think was on some of the previous drawings is that if we do relocate that play area, I think we can actually get more than simply a slide and a swing. We might be able to have a couple other pieces of play equipment in there as well. So I think that begins to kind of illustrate that we could maybe enhance it and actually have it be a better play area.
So, and the one SketchUp where we're kind of showing the existing, I think when we go to, and this would be great to get your comments, we will update this SketchUp to show kind of the new spray park and play area. So.
Yeah, and just one thing in terms of tree impacts, if you take the very first option with the 2-story with the entrance on 6th, and then this courtyard scheme, it has relatively the same number of trees that would have to be removed. So one doesn't have more trees than the other, at least for this planning purposes. And when we get into details, we'll take a look at it a little bit closer. But it's relatively the same. It mostly deals with just the footprint of the building and open space.
Are you ready for questions? Any questions from the committee? Comments or questions?
Not a question, comments. I guess that's what you're here for, is to get some feedback. And I would say all along, my personal opinion was I really like the 2-story look. However, I'm all about efficiency, and 100 years down the road, that kind of changes my thinking. And we never seem to have enough money for staffing. And if that 1-story is the more efficient option for staffing, then I would have to bias to that regardless of my visual opinion. It seems to make sense. I remember when the swing set and slide went in, though, also, and the neighborhood association had a lot of input on that. So the idea of redoing all of that down there, I think, is a positive thing, but I would be very mindful of their input throughout the process. They've got a vested interest into that right down from their houses. Ms. Walsh would be one that I would go to and ask her direct opinion either way, and I don't know what that opinion is, but I like the idea of bringing in some new amenities. I like the idea of I could see some outdoor little guitar concert in there when the water's off, things like that. So I was kind of surprised about that piece. I was afraid coming in here we were going to be losing pieces, not being replaced.
Yeah,
So-
we feel that it's really important, and it goes kind of part and parcel with the library. We're also showing kind of an interior courtyard, which could be like a little learning garden. And so both having opportunities for play outside with play equipment, a new kind of water feature, and then something happening inside, we think are great amenities.
In all the schemes, even with the underground scheme, which actually basically, other than some light monitors, the library went away. We're thinking of this as a building in the park. And in the courtyard or the wrap scheme, the ability to kind of break down the mass, and whether we use green roof, kind of garden area, stuff like that, to really break down the mass, still let the Carnegie come kind of be the dominant, the dominant building on the site. All of them are going to be buildings in the park, and be respectful of that, and not like an urban, hard edge building, that kind of thing. So even on Jefferson, there'll be an interaction with the park and the building, to kind of keep that soft, kind of strolling kind of atmosphere that the park has.
Was there any thought? Oh, excuse me.
Oh no, I was just going to ask on the one-story option. What is the is it pretty much glass on the outside of the building on the addition, or?
We haven't dealt a lot with materials yet. The one, the library boards. Well, we're thinking that there'll be more glass above, and we've kind of brought the base up to kind of diminish the height. So that second story would look smaller, kind of less impressive, or imposing, I should say. And that idea of kind of being up in the canopy of the trees, up along 7th. So, yes.
I was thinking more of the one-story.
Oh, I thought you said 2-story.
No, I'm sorry,
I'm sorry. It would be, yes, it would, as much glass as possible. A lot of it faces west. So that we would need, cover or canopy on that. But like here, right here, we're thinking that would be glass so that you could actually see through and see the back of the Carnegie. I think it's this one. No, that's a 2-story.
Okay.
It's
Well, I'm impressed when you talk about it being a building in the park. And I think I know for a lot of us, we all have very fond memories of both the library and actually, children in the park. And I know I have fond memories of taking my children to the park. And the idea of having this building that is in many ways, at least visually connected to this park space outside the building, not just a library building that you walk into and look at books, but that even when you're in it, you're in a way participating with the park outside of it. That's a very enticing idea. And emphasizing that, the playground equipment and that interaction with that park is very important to the community. But it may be time to update some of that. Some of that equipment is a little scary. Not necessarily to put that on the record, but it's. But it's been there as long as I can remember, having been here 20 years. But
Isn't that why we ride roller coasters, though, is to be scared?
Yeah, that is true.
So, and
my
that's what
daughter's
that slide has
absolute-
always been
Right.
for the children of Oregon City.
Yeah.
It's kind of their badge of honor. To
Well,
be
my
able to
my,
do
da-
that
my
themselves.
18-year-old daughter still goes back to that slide. So
And
still
Dustin,
loves
that,
that slide.
that just so you know that, so everybody knows, that slide was updated about 10 years
Yeah.
ago. So it looks the same, and that was the key to
Yeah.
the change before. But and the other thing back then was the height was very important to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that still exists today, but just
Yeah.
I don't know how you get that kind of height out front, but.
Question back here? Did you want to ask a question?
And then we'll come up and give you our.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, you raised your hand. I thought you wanted to make a comment. Okay. I have a, who approves the historic architecture, and when? I guess that's the main question. When does that happen? Maybe finish. Is it before you decide 2-story, 1-story?
No, we have to, and Mo, correct me if I'm wrong, but we'll go in front of the commissioners on the 1st of October, and, with a recommendation from Library Board, from, McLaughlin, from,
Won't be from
all-
McLaughlin.
And then they make the decision if it's appropriate? No.
We'll decide on one scheme,
Well,
and we will move that scheme.
We'll be going, go
I'm
ahead.
Charlie Mallman, I'm the project manager.
You're supposed to be by a microphone.
Up to a mic, if you would.
So everything we're doing to get through schematic design, so there'd be...
Charlie, could you, just for the record, could you reintroduce yourself on the
Sure,
microphone
I'm
there?
Charlie Ballman. I work
So
for
good.
Shields Oblitz Johnson, and I'm the
Thank you.
project manager for the project. everything you've seen so far is conceptual design. We haven't actually started designing the building yet. So everything you're seeing is very conceptual. The schematic design will take place between now and mid-December. Along the way, we're going to meet with the commission, the Historic Review Board, you all again if you'd like. But at the middle of December, we will reach a point where we can go in for our land use approval. Part of that land use approval is an approval by the Historic Review Board.
Okay.
So we're checking with them as we go, doing the same thing we're doing here tonight. But in the end, it'll be the normal public process of going before the Historic Review Board and getting comments, it'll be the same as any other building that gets developed in the historic neighborhood. So it's a formal public process beginning mid-December.
And I had another question I wanted to ask: was there any thought given to moving the playground or parts of it to the 7th Street side?
Sure.
Or
Kurt can talk about that.
Good question.
I can say, Bob,
If
I
we
was
get
at
crowded,
I was at a public forum that they had at the library, and the neighbors with children were quite adamant that that was not a safe place for their children along the busy 7th Street. I know that was one of their big concerns.
Oh, I knew there'd be a reason. I just wanted to hear what
Yeah,
it was.
and I think that's one, and that's a really good reason. The other is that we simply don't have the space given where the trees are, and all of those pieces of equipment take fairly large kind of safety kind of perimeters that you would need. So we would have to take down additional trees. So we think the 6th Street side is an appropriate site for that.
I would agree with that. Any other questions or comments?
I have one on this design that you're showing right now. The actual use of the Carnegie Center itself, the existing one, that would be less usage. Is that what I heard you say? As far as you would maybe hold different activities in that part of the building?
Well, that's not really decided at all, how that will, the existing building will be used. It will be an active, library area. We're not going to like close it off and not use it or anything like that. Depending on what we build and how we attach to it, will kind of change its use a little bit. If it's a pathway, if it's like the only access to what's behind it, then it's going to be a little different than if it can be kind of off on the side and can be a quiet space, for instance. So some of that will be dependent on foot traffic through it and kind of the flow of traffic through the buildings. So, but it will be a vital and used part of the library. We definitely need that to be included in our entire library program. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Okay. Other comments, questions? Well,
I just want to say that spray park, as much as when I lived in the neighborhood, we used it all the time. It still looks like an old wading pool. And the concepts that you showed from Sherwood, looked pretty exciting. But again, there's some historic quality maybe to that old wading pool look. So I understand there's going to be a struggle, giving up the new for the old, wanting to keep the historic feel to that side of the park. Okay, so just
Can I ask you a question? Do you like the 2-story better without the ramps on the front of it and the entrance on the 6th Street?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I do not like the ramps up to the current front. It just really changes that whole site from those pictures that I saw at the last meeting, and said, no, there's got to be a different entrance.
Okay. Great, thanks.
Are we going to have the opportunity to talk to you?
sure.
I'd very much like to.
Very good.
Great.
Anything else for the people at the at the podium now. Any other questions?
Why were the curved 2 stories, are they no longer being considered for a specific
like
reason?
I said earlier, we're at the work session that we had on the 9th of September, we just asked them if there was any consensus on any of the designs, and they said that those were their 2 favorites, and they asked us to do some specific work on those 2 things.
And that was City Commission?
That was a City Commission work session. So it wasn't a formal decision. So none of the designs are completely tossed out. You know, since then, we've also gotten some geotechnical information back that I would say makes the underground option pretty undoable. But that didn't surprise us completely either, right? So, you know, we're just moving forward in order to do our best to get down to 1. And those 2 are the favorites at the moment. But we're going to go back to them next week and ask if, you know, we're ready to get down to 1. We'd like to, so that we can start work on schematic design so that we can get to the review process in December, which will then allow us to start building next spring or summer so we don't miss the building season. That's what our goal is. So we're just plugging along to try to get to that.
Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thanks.
And I think we have other people who would like to address the committee. Is that correct? Come on up.
Unless there's some questions.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Denise McGriff, and I do live here in the McLaughlin neighborhood, and I am on the executive board of the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association. I'm not going to be speaking and taking an official position, but I'm going to pass on to you comments from the different meetings that we've had with the project team, without the project team, regarding the library. So I'm going to talk to you specifically about the park. I know that many of you are very aware that this property was dedicated to the public in 1844 by Dr. John McLaughlin. As such, the McLaughlin neighborhood has a very small tot park. There is a park over at Barclay School, which not very many of our neighbors use, but maybe the ones over on that side. So you can well imagine, as Daniel and Sean mentioned, this park is heavily used by many of our neighbors, myself included. I do still go on the slide, by the way. Just want you to know. What I'm concerned about from the park standpoint is if you look at the design, it really is a very small park on option 4 with a big old building sitting in it. And the part that gets used the most is that 6th Street side. We had strongly recommended at a couple of meetings, and this was brought up by a neighbor, that we look at, if they were looking at that wrap, that they flip it, regardless of, you know, we didn't have any geotech, and I've been promised the geotech report so I can read it. And the reason I think that suggestion came up is it still leaves the majority of the park on the 6th Street side that most people use. And I can tell you that on any given day on my walks, even in the evening, there are people over on that side. There are a few people who use the bench when they're trekking up and down 7th, but majority of families, anybody that I see in the park is using that side. And it would be a real shame to lose that portion, even though it's the flattest part, it's probably the easiest part to build, but it just constrains our neighborhood's ability to have a park. Mm-hmm. The one other thing I should bring up to you is I was at the Historic Review Board meeting on Tuesday, where staff specifically mentioned to the project team that the spray pool is historically significant and will also be reviewed along with the rest of the building. So I think Joyce brought it up that yes, it still has a lot of its historic characteristics even though it was changed, and you were right, we were very active and involved in looking at the designs because again, you know, it's a major feature in the McLaughlin neighborhood. With all due respect to Kurt, and I've actually worked with Kurt in my professional life, I think the Sherwood thing is extremely suburban, and ours wouldn't look like that. I mean, Sherwood is suburbia. I don't really consider Oregon City very suburban, but there's options that could be looked at. I would not want to lose the spray park area and the portion of the swing sets. Again, I've participated in the new slide and all that, and we keep getting this over and over again. Oh, we can't have anything that's dangerous. Well, I understand risk management, I understand liabilities that the city has, but let's be real. If we don't have to move it, let's not move it. I think, I'm going to save my comments regarding the architecture because we're not there yet, but I would definitely think that there is another option for getting people into the front of the building without losing the base. And it seems like a couple of the presentations that I've heard are really talking about how negative that would be, and it is to a point, but I think, these are professional design people. I have the utmost respect and confidence in them that they can come up with a different front so we don't lose the front. But that front entry is really critical to the historic integrity, the significance, and everything that building is all about. And to lose that and the park would be like, just shoot me now. So that's all I really wanted to say.
Hi, I'm Francesca Antone. I'm at 123 High Street, and I've had a relationship with the park and the library since 1978.
She's also on the executive board of the library.
Yes. And, I'm glad I came tonight because as the park committee, I think that should be your real priority. There's so many different ways to design a library and deal with space. I just came back from working in Canada for the last 5 years. We have a landscape architect and designer in Canada called Cornelia Oberlander. She's quite incredible. She's internationally famous, and one of the projects she's working in at many schools and urban parks all over the world is the whole concept of risky play. It's very big. And so all this talk about safety stuff is really behind the 8 ball as far as I'm concerned. There's really amazing things happening. But for me, a park is so much more than just the equipment. It is the visual sense of quiet and beauty. And really, for years, Oregon City's been pretty minimal. We haven't had the value of really enhancing our parks in terms of beauty as well as usability. So people come and sit in the park because they have a sense of space and quiet. And we really had that back in the 80s around the Carnegie Center. And I think it can be had again. And I think it's a really important quality as this town gets more and more urban to think about beauty and restfulness in an area where people come and congregate together, as well as children playing. It's not just children who come to the park. So I just hope that this town sees it, places that value of having it a place where actually people want to come and be comfortable. And so that's all I have to say, but I hope you consider that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I guess I have one
Any
question.
other-
Oh, just a question about this idea of flipping it. So, I mean, with the push to keep it over on the 6th Street side, was that purely a cost estimate because of the additional excavation, because of the slope nature? Or?
There's definitely a cost component to it. However, there's a great deal of parking over on 6th Street and it's very flat. And it would be really nice to have some handicap parking that had a little bit better access to the entry, wherever that entry is. And when it goes to the 6th Street side, the ramp, then that entry is closer to 6th Street. In fact, we could even create a ramp that was covered up to the door that would go along the frontage and into the courtyard entry. So we were thinking of some things like that too.
Okay.
Bob.
Okay.
Bob, I have
Yeah.
another question.
Sean.
I'm kind of surprised I haven't heard this tonight at all, and it came up in rumors before, but why isn't there a second floor entrance option from the back side on the 2-story? Wouldn't that fix all those problems?
Well, not necessarily. The parking up there, as you know, is like kind of double slanted. So some of the parking, I'm not sure we could do handicap parking up there because of that slant makes it kind of tricky. And it might be possible to do an entry up there, and we would definitely look into it if we do a 2-story. The levels are a little bit under discussion. I'm not quite sure what that would turn out like. So if that they would actually, the second floor, I'm not sure that would exactly be level to the sidewalk there. You know, there might have to be a series of stairs or ramps or something.
I could imagine a bridge and redoing that entire sidewalk to a front entrance there and making it a lot more grand with a drop-off area and parking. It just seems like a completely workable empty slate. There's nothing historical there. And then yet you don't touch anything down on the original front in that option.
You know, before we presented the 5 schemes and the variation, probably had a couple variations of each of those 5 schemes. You know, we've looked at access off of Jefferson. You know, even if you redo the sidewalk, the slope is pretty severe, and you actually come in kind of split level. You're neither at the second level nor at the first level. So then compounded with the 2-story library, then you have a split level entrance, and then you have the basement. So it just, you know, and then you're pushed back behind the Carnegie, and it's just really, really hard to kind of get a gracious entry with ADA. You end up using almost the whole side of Jefferson for ramping and stairs. I mean, we've looked at schemes where we have a 2-story, but 1 story's underground, you know, and it's just very inefficient for getting, you know, natural light. And we just found out from the geotech that we have hard basalt, pretty much, you know, that just echoes the existing slope of the site. So we're into pretty major excavation once we're down about 8 feet. And I think right now, if we come off the existing Carnegie elevation, we're probably about 6 feet into that corner, 6 to 8 feet into that corner. It's not like it's not doable, but it's a lot of the planning has to deal with how the library works. You know, and talking about a 100-year building, the ones not only with staffing and that kind of thing, a 1-story building's much more flexible and much more efficient because you're not buying elevators and stairs. So, and then also it really then completely disengages kind of the flow with the existing Carnegie entry. So the courtyard seemed like a really happy, you know, medium where you're still walking by the Carnegie, you know, you're still interacting, you know, whether it's a secondary entry or exit, or could, you know, the park gets developed so it's somewhat of an amphitheater, you know, off the existing stairs. So that's a long-winded reason as to why.
It makes sense. I just, in my experience, if I don't get on board with what the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association wants, it's not going to happen. So that said, if their living room is the 6th Street side, that goes to the top of the list.
Well, and I've heard some really good things, you know, and about wanting it to be a building in the park and some of that. But what I haven't heard in this presentation is any kind of what are the overarching kind of design goals for this building? Is it about the biggest bang for the buck for the library? Is it about designing a building for the community to interact in? I mean, I know it's a new library, but what are the design goals for this building? You know, I mean, is it about designing the best place for the community to come to and use as a library and fit it into the neighborhood and their use? Or is it to make the most efficient building for the library to exist for the next 100 years? And those are all legitimate things. I'm not advocating one or the other, but
I guess
what is it?
I guess my overarching thought with design is to leave this community with a building that's as flexible as possible and as adaptable as possible. So in the future, it could be, we don't know what libraries are going to be changing into. We want to have space that's open and really adaptable to a lot of different types of activities. So, I mean, I want to make it work for a library, definitely, because we want to keep it a library, and I think that, you know, as hopefully libraries will last for a long, long time. But libraries may look very different in the future, so I guess my overarching design thing is flexibility.
Okay.
And I'd say, to speak to that, I mean, we're still gathering the information. You know, we've got kind of two schemes, but yet we're still talking about others. And I think, you know, the library building committee and Mo especially, you know, is very conscientious in reaching out and trying to come to the best solution possible for both the library and the park.
Well, for your next presentation, I'd be very curious to see the existing two-story plan without modifying any, but go to the back side and work on some entrance options there, because I think that gives either buy-off or it shows us why that doesn't work. I mean, I could envision U-shaped walkways up to it because those can deal with elevation.
You mean from 6th Street?
No, from Jefferson.
From Jefferson.
Like a U-shaped walkways, even if they're bridges going up to it.
Right. We're pretty close to Jefferson right now to stay behind the Carnegie. And we actually have, I mean, conceptually have looked at it.
You know, one of our presentations we had earlier, the reason for that parking lot back there was a possibility of a bridge over Jefferson into the second story of that the proposed building. Now, I'm not sure that was just...
That's where I had heard that.
Yeah, we heard that before, but...
I said that?
No.
Oh, okay.
Rumors.
Oh, okay.
I
like,
wouldn't
I
put a
don't
single
think I
name
ever
on
went
it.
that far.
Well, we must have been talking...
Bridges are really expensive.
And do you want to talk a little bit about, I mean, we're looking at kind of improving the on-street parking, and then
I think we're going to have to move along.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And there'll be plenty of time, I'm sure, as you move along. And before you're excused, though, I'd like to know what your next meetings are so we can participate if we want to. Or
Well, the next meeting is next Wednesday, October the 1st, at the City Commission.
Okay. Very good. We want to thank you very much. It's going to be a challenge for all involved here.
It very much will be.
And,
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Good
much.
luck.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
your time.
Thank you very much. Scott, we have another presentation.
So moving from the library to Kitty Corner across the street to the Pioneer Community Center. And as Jamie's making her way up here, I'll give you a quick intro. This is Jamie Davey. She's our Client Services Coordinator from the Pioneer Center. In some of our past meetings, you've discussed what we've done in previous years, which is maybe once a year or so. We'll try to keep with that. I think it's been, we missed it last year doing this, but to have a kind of a major update presentation from the key folks involved in the Pioneer Center, the swimming pool, and our parks operations. And so over the next 3 meetings, starting tonight, we've got those lined up for you. So tonight is the first, and then next month we're going to do the pool, and then after that we'll have a parks, kind of a major update. And typically we'd have Kathy Wiseman, our center manager here, doing this. A lot of you know Kathy. And she is on vacation, and so Jamie has steadfastly stepped up and offered to do this presentation. So I guess we should probably be extra nice to her for jumping in and doing that for Kathy. So you can leave your screens onto the presentation switch side, because we've got this slideshow for you that goes along with Jamie's comments. So with that, just take it away.
Thank you guys for having me, even though I'm filling in for Kathy. So a couple of if you have any questions, I'll divert those over to Scott. But I'm Jamie. I'm the Client Services. So I basically work with our seniors, social services, also the volunteer program. So I wear several hats there. I originally put together the presentation for our open house, and so a lot of the information is kind of a little bit of the history. So if you're already familiar with it, that's great, and if you're not, then that's even better. So the location of the senior center, it was originally Francis and Hilda Jacobs, in memory of their father and brother, established a fund, and the fund was actually to purchase. They purchased the block that the senior center sits on, and then it was donated to the city of Oregon City to be forever used for the recreational, educational purposes of the citizens. And the location is actually convenient and perfect for the services that we provide to seniors and adults with disabilities. We are really close to TriMet, or to the transit center. We're kitty corner from the library, which a lot of our patrons can easily access the library and our services. We're really conveniently located to Social Security offices, our Medicaid office, and Clackamas County Social Services. And it's great because we can have a lot of walk-ins. It's very easily accessible. So we're fortunate to be in our location. That works. And who we are. So we are a multi-purpose recreation center. We provide many services, including nutrition, transportation, education, recreation, several different types of programs and services. And our main purpose is to provide these services to individuals to help them stay active, healthy, and most importantly, independent, especially independent in their home as long as possible. And a little history on the building of the center, and Scott, you can fill in a little bit of with some information. The HUD Urban County Grant was about $350,000. The discretionary block grant was around $329,000. The City of Oregon City was around $93,000, and then local fundraising to go towards the center was $8,800. And overall, total funding for the center was around $781,000. And so today, we received several sources of funding for the senior center. Not only the City of Oregon City, State of Oregon, Older Americans Act, private and corporate donations, participant donations, which include like memberships to the senior center, and also local businesses, center fundraising. And we also have an annual contract with the City of West Linn. Not many people know, but we do provide, through that contract with West Linn, we provide transportation as well as Meals on Wheels, and then social services, so client services, which would be me. I could do in-home meetings with like homebound seniors in West Linn. So with that annual contract with West Linn.
Is that also like if people want to come over on the bus, this is their center for, they don't have anything over there?
They have a small recreation center in West Linn, but they don't receive funding through the county, through the Older Americans Act. So we actually receive funding to do the transportation, Meals on Wheels, as well as social services. Okay. But they do have a small recreation center, but they usually, when clients call West Linn, they will just have them contact us directly, and then we just provide that service. So this is kind of a snapshot of the donation accounts for the last 10 years. The Pioneer General Use Fund and the Meals on Wheels Fund shows how much has been raised and spent, and if you want to elaborate on that. Okay. And so with some of the donation accounts, we've been able to use some of the funds for some major improvements, such as when we had the new steam oven installed. The steam oven, I know the pictures are funny, the steam oven served over 1 million meals, so it had definitely served its purpose. Originally the unused space on the side, and that was 5th Street, turned into the new community garden, which is heavily used now. We provide lots of classes, gardening classes, nutrition classes, that we get to utilize the community garden. As well as receiving over $24,000 in community grants, and it's allowed us to provide additional support services. So within the last year, I believe, we actually purchased our own minibus so that we can solely have the use of that for the city. The other transportation buses we have is a partnership with Ride Connection, and that we basically are leasing those buses under a certain contract. So we're actually really fortunate to have our own, so that we can also use that for services other than just for the senior center. We can use those for city-sponsored events if we needed to. And then some of the services we provide, this is just a quick snapshot. Nutrition, transportation, social services, health services, recreation, facility rentals, as well as community involvement. With our Meals on Wheels program, fiscal year, we served over 27,000 meals to homebound seniors. We currently have 9 routes, so we have 7 here in Oregon City and then 2 in West Lynn. And on an average day, we have 9 routes, so we serve Meals on Wheels and congregate 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And our Meals on Wheels program is at max capacity right now. We've even had, in the last couple months, we've had a wait list with, I believe it was the Oregon City, Beaver Creek and the Redland area. So the need is very great, and we unfortunately can't provide all of the services. And some of the criteria for Meals on Wheels, 60 and over and homebound, and you have to be an Oregon City Westland resident, and we can provide meals for the under 60 population, but they have to be Medicaid approved through the state. And then our congregate lunch is a lunchtime meal that we serve in the senior center Monday through Friday, 11:30 to 12:30. And it's a suggested donation for seniors over 60. So there's no financial requirements for payment. It's any donation that they can afford. And it's all anonymous. So so the individuals can make a donation if they'd like, and if not, it's completely anonymous. In 2013-14 fiscal year, we served over 8,700 meals in our congregate lunchroom. So it's a very busy place. If you've ever seen it, it's very busy in there. And lots of volunteers in the kitchen.
Does something like that operate financially stable? I mean, you touched on the donation side of it, but...
Donation side of it. No, the cost to provide the meal and what we're reimbursed is, I don't know the specific numbers. We can get that to you.
No, I'm just curious.
But it would not be self-sustaining.
Okay.
By any means. So.
And do you have enough people that are giving donations, private citizens that are that make it with that self-sustaining, or do you get to a point where you're hurting at the end of the year and you need people to help? I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, that kind of goes to the whole budget of the center, and it. Jamie hit a little bit on some of those budget pieces, but we receive funding from a variety of sources as a senior center. Though we like to refer to ourselves as the Pioneer Community Center, but it is a senior center function. We are able to receive funding from federal, state, and county sources that subsidize some of the programs, including the meals. We do get the donations, and we also have fees for certain programs and things, but just specifically on the lunch program. And then the city does provide a subsidy to the center through our general fund. So that whole thing goes together, and we have an operating budget that is balanced based on all those different things. But I think if you're saying, do the donations for the meals themselves just pay for that? No, but it's from all the different sources. So yeah.
Thank you.
And then our transportation, that's probably one of our biggest services we provide. We offer transportation to seniors 60 and over and adults with disabilities, keeping them connected with the community. They can come in for lunch, for recreational activities. We also try to prioritize medical rides if necessary. We are unfortunately unable to go outside of our transportation boundaries, so if doctor's appointments are, say, like in Portland or at the Kaiser, we're unable to drive outside of those limits. But unfortunately, there's some other resources in the area that we can connect seniors to. And And our transportation program is pretty much at capacity as well. We have 2 part-time drivers, and they are on the road at all times. And again, that is a suggested donation as well. For a one-way ride is just a suggested donation. So there's no, if there's no ability to pay, that's okay. And then this last fiscal year, we provided over 7,800 rides and totaled over 28,000 miles. So some of the rides also includes not just our daily medical appointments and center services back and forth, but also some of our trips. So we're actually, with that Older Americans Act and the funding, we are reimbursed per ride. And also through Medicaid, we can provide, we can have Medicaid reimbursed rides as well. So. Another big part of the Senior Center, this is mostly my specialty here, it's the social services, client services section. So we have several types of services that we provide in-house. We have, like, for example, the Home Energy Assistance Program. Right now, I'm gearing up for the winter months. The Home Energy Assistance Program helps low-income seniors with their heating bills. If you qualify financially, I actually will help you apply for the program. At the senior centers are very fortunate that with the program like this, we actually get priority to serve the seniors, the population. We actually get 2 months of headway, I guess, before the actual general population can start applying. So through the county, I receive applications, and I sign lower income seniors or even low income families up for energy assistance. And it's when it comes around to the winter months and their heating bills are going up, it's a really good service that the county can provide, and that the benefit actually goes to their, if it's PGE or Northwest Natural, they get a credit to their account. So a lot of social services that I provide are those kind of programs that I can actually physically help a senior sign up for. And we also do daily wellness checks, several other social services that the community can need. And if there's services that we can't connect an individual with, or if they might not meet some of the requirements, then I will help them. I can connect them to the other community resources that are out there. And being in Clackamas County and close to social services, it's really helpful there. We're able to connect those seniors if there's a gap or if they're not quite 60, or we can connect them with pretty much any kind of social services that are in their area. And we also have on-site health services. So we have ongoing blood pressure clinics. We have hearing aid clinics. We just started an on-site mobile dental clinic. I think it's been going now for about 2 months. So we have a lot of services that we can provide on-site because with transportation to the senior center, it's nice to have those services where they can access them. Dental services are one that a lot of seniors cannot get access to transportation-wise, so having that available at the senior center. And then the individual that also does that can go to homes and do home visits. So we do a lot of different health services, classes, activities, and several partner with several different agencies that come in. So for example, Walgreens, we partner with Walgreens a lot. They come in, they do flu shot clinics. They'll come in and speak to individuals about their prescriptions that they have. And so we have a lot of health services that are on site. And one of our most fun parts of our services is recreation. So we offer numerous types of activities. We offer day trips, overnight trips. The photo in the top left, we just recently kayaked the Willamette Falls. We had about 13 older adults sign up, and it was about an hour-and-a-half excursion. We partnered with the local kayak shop here in Oregon City, and he was great with all of our adults. Unfortunately, as we went to leave the facility when the whole entire trip was all done, we did lose one senior into the water, off the dock. The owner was just commenting on how over 100 trips and he hadn't lost one person yet. So technically he still hadn't, not at least out of the kayak.
We got 2 back, so we came out 1 person ahead. I don't know how that worked.
And then not only do we just provide services in-house to clients and seniors and just the community at large, but we're also a facility rental. So evenings and weekends, we have lots of weddings and receptions and all sorts of other different fun events that we host or just rent for. So as well as, the city can come and use our facility. We've hosted, certain different community events there through the city. We've also done a couple of town halls, and I believe we've had some commission meetings over there as well. So the facility itself is beautiful, and we're really busy, and it's also a really good source of revenue for the senior center after our normal business hours. And then some of the community involvement that we participate in, obviously, is volunteer opportunities. Without all the volunteers at the senior center, we couldn't do a fraction of what we provide. For example, in 2013, our volunteers served over 15,000 hours. And on a daily average basis, I would say we have between 20 and 30 volunteers. That's Meals on Wheels, that's volunteers at the front desk. We also have between 10 and 15 volunteers maybe in the kitchen on a given day, serving meals, helping to clean pots and pans. So it's a very active center. And volunteers are like our lifeblood. We couldn't rely on them, or we couldn't rely on any of our services without them. We also host and participate in a variety of fundraising events. Several of our on-site fundraisers are March for Meals. We also participate in the Chinook book sales. We have a giant recycling bin outside, compliments of B&B leasing. So people from the community come, do their recycling, throw all their papers in there, and they scoop it up, recycle it for us, and then the donations come back to the center. So it's super easy, and it's anybody can do it. One of our recent fundraisers, we got this idea from the Malala Community Center. Individuals wanted to have a garage sale, but they didn't, with staff time, and they didn't want to have over hours. So what they did is they actually leased out space at the center, and individuals sold their own items. So we actually took that idea and ran with it. And this year, during the McLaughlin neighborhood, the annual McLaughlin neighborhood sale, we thought about renting out space in our outside area, and we rented tables that the community center had, and individuals made donations for those tables. So it was very little staff time involved. It was during business hours, so there was no overtime. And we had I want to say in just one day for that garage sale, it was about a $300 donation that went back to Meals on Wheels. And it was a great event. We had one new donation come in from just a individual, and then we also secured a couple of volunteers that were there that day. And it was a great way for us just to kind of be out in the community and just involved. It was a lot of fun.
Just a question on that newspaper drop box. Yes. Okay, with the expanded library and the expanded use of that parking lot, that city parking lot, is there still going to be room to continue that newspaper box there, or will we need to take that back into a couple of parking spaces? Just something to consider, because I look at that.
To be determined, I think, is the answer, but yeah,
right.
We'll be taking a look at that.
Okay, thank you.
And then sponsorships. We rely on local businesses, service groups to sponsor certain activities and events to help us keep doing what we're doing. So, for example, the picture here, these are several different individuals and service clubs that are our Meals on Wheels Cover the Miles sponsors. So they, in partnership, they get their name on our Meals on Wheels, and those are giant magnets that our drivers, when they're delivering their Meals on Wheels, can put on their car. So that way, the clients know that that's the Meals on Wheels driver that's delivering their meal, but it also benefits the sponsor to have their name prominently displayed. But they're really great, and all of those groups up there participate in other sponsorship activities, not just Meals on Wheels, but all sorts of stuff. And then not only do we just provide services just within our center, but we partner with different other different parks departments. So we are really involved with the daddy-daughter dance. Unfortunately, this year would have been my first year I got to go to attend, and it was snowed out. So I have not yet been able to go, but it's from what I hear, it's a great event, and it's fun that the community center and staff get to be involved in that. Volunteer appreciation concert, we've been involved with that for many, many years. We're selling our Italian sodas as a fundraiser, and now that the location has changed, it's a little bit more difficult. First Friday Film Series, we partnered with the library the last year or two, I believe, and they were hosting those at our facility, but now they've also relocated down to the EOT, I believe. And then the summer reading program, this was a recent picture of the library utilizing our space for different activities and summer reading programs. So it's kind of nice during the summertime. We have some younger individuals, families coming in to use our space. And
your date looks a little reluctant, Scott, in the photo.
Oh, I believe that's a few years old.
Yeah, that funny-looking guy in the red shirt there, that was one of the first years we did that event. And
she's in college now.
The beautiful young lady in that picture beside me just turned 20 yesterday.
Oh, really?
And I'm taking her to her sophomore year of college to Saturday.
You haven't changed a bit.
That was one of the most recent pictures I could find of that event, so somebody's got it somewhere. Just a couple. I want to say 2006, is that right? So today's numbers, we are one of the largest community centers in Clackamas County. There are 11 total, and of those 11, Milwaukee is the number one, and then we're right next to them in regards to size and service. So you can see within an 11-year time span how much our services, the need for our services have increased. So transportation has increased over 22%, which is at max capacity. Meals on Wheels has kind of stayed a little average, and I did talk to our Meals on Wheels coordinator about that, and she says they've consistently had that need in the community, and it's been kind of consistent. Congregate has 94% increase. And we still have one of the largest congregate lunches in the county compared to Milwaukee. And recreation, 501% increase. It's pretty amazing, and we just keep providing the services and keep being at max capacity. In comparison to Milwaukee, we are about 2/3 understaffed. We provide the same amount of services with 2/3 the staff. So we are really busy doing what we do, wearing many hats. Just some interesting kind of facts. The baby boomer generation. It's the baby boomers that we are primarily going to be seeing as our future clients, especially with the increase of the older population. So as you can see, baby boomers born between 1946 and 1964. That kind of shows how diverse those two, or the whole time span in those generations there. And so what does our future look like? So the numbers are pretty impressive. Americans age 65 plus are projected to double from 40 million to 88 million in 2050. The number of people in the oldest age bracket, the 85 plus, are going to quadruple. So we're definitely seeing the shift in the seniors and the types of services that we're coming in for. And it'll be interesting to see how the aging demographics are really going to shape the future of the parks and recreation and the senior centers in the county and nationwide. And another interesting fact, so every day 10,000 baby boomers turn 65. It's just kind of, the numbers speak for themselves. And 1 in 3 Americans is now 50 or older. And by 2030, 1 out of every 5 in the United States will be 65 plus. And so it's just kind of something that we are looking towards as community centers, how that's going to change the services, the types of services, the kinds of programs that we provide. So we've got a lot of information to take in. And then with planning for the future, baby boomers in general have saved less for retirement. They're required generally to be working more and longer. So it kind of just gives us, again, an idea of how the boomer generation and in the next 10, 15, 20 years is going to change the services that we provide and how it's going to impact the type of services we have. And the last slide, we recently just came back from the Oregon Recreation and Parks Association conference, and this was a really great slide, YouTube video on kind of the parks in general, and this was our keynote speaker that had this on his presentation. So it's just a really interesting and fun show. Does it work?
Did you know there's a physical activity crisis in America? Today, 95% of U.S. adults, 92% of adolescents, and 58% of children don't meet the daily recommendation for physical activity. Pretty scary, right? Well, here are 8 cool facts about parks that can help reverse that trend. Number 1. The more parks there are in a community, the more people exercise. So let's make more parks. Number 2. People who live closer to parks exercise more. Awesome. Number 3. Here's where it gets interesting. People who live close to parks report better mental health, whether or not they exercise there. Whoa! Number 4. The more aesthetically pleasing a park, the more likely people are to exercise there. Number 5. Parks with fun features like skate parks or sports fields attract more people. And strangely enough, the addition of a skate park not only attracts skaters, but can increase everyone else's use of the park as well. Number 6. Parks that offer team sports, classes, and exercise sessions are much more likely to be used than those that don't. So get organized. Number 7. If you install high-quality exercise equipment, not only do the people who use it get more fit, but those who don't are more active just because it's there. They get inspired. Number 8. Finally, parks save people money. One recent study finds that exercise can be as effective as drugs in preventing chronic diseases. So more exercise is not only good medicine, it's also good for the bottom line. So why not just head to your local park? Parks are good for our bodies, minds, and communities. And they just might change your life. Created by the Trust for Public Land and supported by a grant from the Active Living Research Program of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. For more information on parks and health, visit tpl.org.
Very, very good. Any questions or comments for Jamie?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that was very, very well done. Thank you very much.
That's I wanted to bring that up too for both Scott and Jamie. I think that I've only been on this group for a couple of months, but I've noticed that the full-time people do a lot with a little, and so thank you very much.
I would like to echo that comment. I am immensely proud to be associated with the staff of our whole department, but we're talking about the Pioneer Center tonight, so specifically that group, Jamie and all of her coworkers, Kathy with her leadership of that group. We have a small but mighty staff. It's kind of a running theme in our department, and as you can see from the presentation, we offer a lot of services for our community members, and I'm just really proud of what we do at the center. But our staff deserve a lot of credit, so thanks for pointing that out, Dustin.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, we are moving right along here. General business, that's Scott, your agenda item.
Yes. Don't be frightened by the sound behind you. We're just going to close up the presentation. Just a reminder, you can switch your little toggle switch back over to the right, and it'll put you back onto your agenda screen. The next 3 items really are kind of just general updates of things that we've been talking about and or are working on. And so I'll just give you a quick update on each of those, and if you have any questions or comments, please let me know. The first is the master planning projects for both Glen Oak and Filbert Run Parks that you know that we've been working on. Since our last meeting, last month, we held the first of a series of public meetings for each of the 2 park sites. We held them on separate nights. Some of you were at one or both of those meetings. The meetings were very well attended. They went really well. we had around 50 or more people at each of the two meetings by kind of a unofficial head count, and actually that's a pretty good turnout for these types of meetings from my experience. A lot of great discussion, input, feedback, etc. And so we've got our second public meetings, the follow-up meetings coming up, and I think you've received at least one or more notices from me on that. And if you were on another mailing list, you might have received a couple of notices. Those meetings are Tuesday, October 7th at the Pioneer Center will be the Filbert Run meeting, and Thursday, October 9th. And actually, we're going to do that one at the high school because of the proximity, and that one is for Glen Oak Park. Each of those meetings begin at 6:30. And at the second meeting, so the first meeting was basically kind of just the open charrette, blank slate kind of a thing where our consultant, Lango Hansen, landscape architects, Kurt was here earlier. He just happens to be working with the library architects, but present kind of an open slate of here's what the property is, and here's some technical things about the property, what we can and can't do, and so forth. And here are some ideas about things that typically go in a small neighborhood park like Filbert Run, or a bigger kind of a medium-sized neighborhood / community park like Glen Oak, and the different considerations, and a lot of really good feedback and input and discussion. And then what our consultant does then is they turn those comments and that feedback and what they kind of sensed into some different options, not too much unlike what maybe along the lines of what you saw from the library architects group, where they sort of come up with different ideas. So for each of those park meetings, they'll present three very rough schematics of potential park designs, and with reflecting to the best of our ability what we think was kind of some of the main themes of discussion, and some potential designs of where things might be located in those parks and so forth. And then those are presented, and just like the first meeting, we can kind of pick those things apart and talk about what works and what doesn't work, and what the neighborhood or what the residents or community members see as good and bad in those designs. And then there'll be a third meeting in this process where we'll go back with what would be called basically a preferred design that will be presented as kind of the first run at a master plan for the park. That would be hopefully capturing what would be the input and all that. So it's a difficult process because everybody wants something a little bit different, and there's not an exact vision that everybody has, but the idea is to get to closest that we can to what's representative of the majority of the input, and also kind of the needs and what works and all that good stuff. So we're looking forward to this.
Are any of those design ideas, are they on the city website at all?
Not yet. They
Not
haven't
yet?
been. No, they'll be unveiled at that meeting coming up here in those dates that I just announced. So yeah. So and once those are unveiled, then we'll put them on the website. We can at our next PRAC meeting, if you wish to discuss those, if you're not able to come to the meeting, we can present that if something you'd like. Obviously, I'm going to keep this on as a standing item while we're at every meeting while we're going through that. So I would envision that for our October meeting, we'd be looking at those, and in case you don't have the opportunity, and I can also email those out to the group if you'd like to see those. But again, we're not going to unveil them until those meetings. So that's kind of it on that. I just wanted to present where we're at in the process, and if you have any questions or comments, I'd be glad to hear those.
I think you guys did an awesome job at those first meetings. Those of us who went to both of them, were quite impressed by the different kinds of turnout that got there. But both of them, there was pretty much a consensus, it felt like, from the neighbors that were there about what they wanted. So very
Some
different
clear
visions,
messages, yeah.
very different parts.
Different sites,
but-
different neighborhoods, and different wants. And yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. But thank you for coming, and for those of you that were able to make it, as participation is what makes these processes work. So. Yeah, I forgot to mention, we did have those at the park sites, which is, I've been in this business for over 20 years and have done a number of park master plans. That's the first time we've had the opportunity to make where the timing worked is such that we were able to do the first kind of kickoff meeting at the site, and it worked really well. It was kind of a neat thing to do in terms of, let's just go onto the site and kind of be at the place that we're talking about. We're not going to be able to do that for the next meetings just because of weather and you know, and just the type of space that we need to put
Also,
up.
we need to see
put up
those
picture
plans.
boards
Yeah,
and
the picture
so forth.
boards
Yeah,
didn't
so
hold up real well
but it was
outside.
great. It just created a really neat environment and kind of a different feel for those types of meetings. It was a lot of fun.
Bob, all I was going to say on that, I agree, and I don't think we can say enough, and we won't be exaggerating to say that it was a huge success. It was kind of one of those events that made you proud to attend. It was kind of surprising, and I would say, having been involved in this for a long time, I went in with preconceived ideas of what was going to come out, and I was absolutely shocked that there were so many things that went a different way. You know, we've heard for years what Glen Oak Park would be. That's not what the neighborhood wanted. You know, it was really neat to get out there and hear exactly what their ideas are, and I encourage everybody to show up at these next ones, because eventually you're all going to be voting on this. And at the point in which you vote may be a time when you've got 30 of those people sitting here saying do one and not the other. So it could come back that being at those meetings is beneficial in helping form an opinion. But well done, Scott, for coming up with that idea.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Bob, if I may, real quick.
Oh,
We're losing him.
dangerous there.
I had a couple of people from the neighborhood there, because I live near Glen Oak, and I had some people pass by and saw me there and asked me later about what was going on and what the plans were, and I would echo what's been said. It was popular, and not only that, since then I've had a lot of people come to me and give input on what they'd like to see. I've had a couple more expressed interest in a ultimate frisbee, or not ultimate frisbee, but frisbee golf
Yeah.
and basketball for the Glen Oak area. So anyway, for what it's worth.
Keep going.
Moving along. Next is just a standing update on the Willamette Falls Legacy Project. The major news that I can report to you is that in terms of the land use process that I've been trying to keep you posted about, earlier this week, September 22, so I think Monday night, the Planning Commission reviewed this at their meeting, and that this being the master plan of the property, and the Planning Commission approved the master plan with little to no changes from what was presented. And my understanding is that then the City Commission will need to do the final adoption of that. That's kind of the typical process on a master plan. So that was a very big step in terms of the land use piece of this. So then of course that's the vision, and then what happens from there is to be determined. And the city continues to work with the property owner and of course all of our public agency partners. And again, the big public piece of this that we're focused on right now is trying to build the river walk, which is at least early estimates, it's about a $30 million project. It would be be a world-class type of an amenity that would go through the property along the river, being a river walk, and it would take you out to the falls. So that's the big focal piece from the kind of the public side, and then the master plan and the vision for the site and how it develops is the other part of that. So,
Scott, I was at that meeting and came away with some different kind of thoughts. There was strong support for the Riverwalk. Everybody was very supportive of that, but there was a developer or architect from, I'm not sure where he was from, but he wasn't local. And he had done work on a lot of these projects in the past in different places. And he reminded us that we have to leave some flexibility in the code so the developer can be successful in his investment. And he was saying that those buildings are going to be very, very expensive to retrofit. And everybody so far wants to preserve 5 or 6 or 7 for historic purposes. And he was saying just to be really careful not to box in the primary developer, so he doesn't walk away from this. That was the message I came away with, for whatever that's worth. He gave some statistics on rental space, and he said he didn't know everything, but from his vantage point, the rental space in Oregon City is way below what would be needed to make that project successful. So I'm hopeful that things, work out right, so we don't lose a wonderful project. But I left kind of discouraged that planning commission meeting. Anyway, for what that's worth.
I think you've got a citizen that wants to make some comments to you about this topic. Is that right? Thank you, sir.
Good evening.
Welcome.
My name is Bob Mahoney. I live at 240 Park Drive. And not to put too fine a point on it, I was on that voting for it. I serve on the Planning Commission. And what I was a little concerned with was after 2-3 years, with all the citizen support and citizen participation, that the chambers behind me weren't crammed with people. They should have been. I mean, Oregon City has gotten to a point now where it is just on the cusp of being discovered by the world. I mean, really. We're putting in a world-class facility which will be a world point of destination for all of the world. And for cultural reasons, for research reasons, for recreation and what have you. What we've done as a community, when I sat up there and made that vote, I started to tremble. Just electricity went right through me, right on down. You could just feel it. Everybody like that. Because we had gone through this tremendous negotiation process for a comp plan, which included the state, metro, the county, the city, and I'm probably leaving somebody out, including the developer. The big gorilla in the room that nobody pays attention to, but everybody's aware of, is the economy. Whether or not we've got to get the money generated by the developer for interest in developing that property. Now, we know that the first thing that's going to happen is that world-class public access onto that premises. That will make the project work, because it will bring people in there. And once people start to arrive, then financially it will start to pencil out, because they represent consumers. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's going to make this community healthy. It's going to put taxable wealth on the ground, and we're going to turn around downtown Oregon City. The problem is, if this thing becomes as successful as we hope it does, then Katie bar the door. I mean, Oregon City, the old Oregon City that we knew it, with choo-choo trains going up and down Main Street and steamboats coming up the river to service the days of the paper mill are gone. We've turned the corner with the jet engine and digital. And that just makes this world a different world. Now, I'm here tonight to ask you, if you could see it in your schedule, to not as a board, because the commission will make the decision and the public policy. But if you couldn't show up at that meeting to support the commission's effort, because this is a gigantic step forward, And we're all human. We all get a little nervous. Gee, am I doing the right thing and stuff like that? And as I said at the Planning Commission meeting, that 4-letter word, trust, okay? And somebody pointed out to me there was 5, and I told him I only missed it by 2, so. But we've got to trust in the future, we've got to trust in each other, and we got to trust in the unknown, where no man has gone before. But we're gonna pull through this if we all work together. There's nothing we can't do in this city if we work together. We can nitpick things to the point of ad nauseum, and lots of times you get down into the weeds and you pick out details that are going to take care of themselves later on down the road. And there's a lot of variables in this thing. And like I say, the variables are the things that have to do with the economy. But if we get behind this community, one and all, and just encourage and I'm not saying that they need it, but they would appreciate it. They're not doing this all by themselves. If you were at the Tumwater Inn the night that we had the dog and pony initially, that was tremendous public turnout for this. I know the public supports this. I just want to see them prove it and fill this chamber. And when it's over, just a standing applause for us all that have been involved in this. Now, you might think I'm, waving my pom-poms, and I am, because I'm a cheerleader for local government. This is where the action is. We can't seem to get our act together in other levels of government. No names mentioned, okay? But at local government, this is where things are starting to happen. Even if it's fixing a sidewalk, or making it safe to cross the street, that kind of stuff. It's happening, and we're all doing it together. We start pulling in opposite directions, nothing gets done. So thank you for your time. I'm going to go back home and finish watching the Kardashians. Okay?
What's the schedule? You mentioned the next hearing. Is there something
Well,
scheduled?
I would suggest that you check with Scott through his office. I'm not quite sure what that schedule is, but we had 3 meetings on that. It's a little detailed, and it's the first. I've been in land use planning for near 20 years, part as a planning director and then as a consultant and what have you. And there's always this push and pull adversarial format that we've always followed because of state law and things of this nature. But it's the first time I've ever seen so many actors at various levels of jurisdiction all the way up to the state. Mm-hmm. And the state's putting in several $1 million on this thing, that everybody was pulling together. They realized that opening the falls is going to let Oregon City finally tell its story. And that story is one of history. And that history is going to bring people from all over the world to this Oregon City. And it's going to require us to look at the comprehensive plan for this community, because there's going to be a lot of collateral effect on this. Parks is going to be one of them. There's going to be people that, my God, this is a neat little place. I think I'll move here. Oregon is one of the best kept secrets in the United States, because we got one thing that you and I have always got our umbrella up for. We've got water. California would like to have our water, and so would other people. But they don't know about Oregon because they haven't been here. But that falls is going to bring them here. And once that happens, this community is going to have to look at its overall general plan and say, where are we going to put these people? What's our transportation system going to look like? What are our parks going to look like? Yada, yada, yada. I can go on and on because I get a little carried away, a little intense, a little excited about the future of Oregon City, you see. And so anyway, I hope you're as excited as I am about it. And if you are, just plant yourself out here and, give that city council an applause, because, they've waited too, and they're not putting anything on the line, so to speak, politically, because there's so much support in the general population for this. But they just have to experience that. They would appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'll notify the Parks and
Thank
Rec
you.
Committee when the City Commission hearing is scheduled. It's going to be, I think it's going to be relatively soon. I mean, they're
Okay, I would agree with everything that you said, except for the last speakers, but I don't want to.
We had a nuclear submarine captain right here giving testimony for the support of it. That doesn't happen that often. We might get a Marine or two, but they don't count. Nuclear submarine captain, oh boy. Thanks a lot.
And the room was full as well. There were 2 empty seats, but so be it.
Is that plan available on the?
It's on the city website,
Okay.
yes. Pretty easy to find. If you can't, let me know.
I don't know if everybody's seen the presentation on their website. I mean, there is a absolutely fantastic presentation on there, and it's too bad that that can't get out somehow. And, you know, it would draw so many people to the meeting.
From that meeting, there's a presentation.
Talking about the new video
On the
that was
website,
produced.
on their website, the
website.
new video.
The
There's a
Willamette
new-
Falls Legacy Project
There's a real,
website.
it's
It
a,
is absolutely
Yeah.
great. I mean, it's really well done.
the project team. That's great. I'm glad you pointed that out. It's been fairly recently that's been published. The project team put together a really short. I think it's a minute and a half or 2 minutes or something.
It's a
like
little bit
that.
longer than that.
Okay,
but
it's tremendous. It really gives you some inspiration about that. Excuse me.
Okay, we have the Ermitinger House update.
Excuse me, I got a tickle in my throat there. Real short update here for you. Mostly just if you have any questions for me. The project is moving forward. It's going along well. As any project goes, there's always a few things you find out when you get into it that you need to deal with. But we've got a really good contractor and a good team. So if you've been by there at all, you've noticed the house sitting up in the air. And you might have looked at it thinking, how is that not going to fall over or something? But they know what they're doing. Anyway, that reason that was up lifted is to do the excavation work underneath and then rebuild the foundation, which was really one of the major structural issues that was presented to us with when the house started doing some weird shifting and things when we kind of started discovering this a couple years ago. So that was really one of the big pieces. But we are anticipating that they'll be dropping that back down to ground level pretty soon, probably in about another week or so. That'll be put back into place on top of the newly done foundation. So, and the timeline is about the same. We're still looking at probably late October or so for the project to finish up. One of the things that we'll probably be talking about here in the fairly near future is the programmatic part of it. Then once we've got it, we've been pretty focused on the target of getting it restored and renovated, and that's been a major commission objective, and we've been working hard on that. But once it's done, we're going to need to determine some of the operational issues there. We've been talking about some different things, so we'll probably be coming back to you with some discussion and maybe even having a little committee where there's some representation from PRAC if some of you might be interested or whatever in terms of kind of helping us with some of that. So more to come on that piece. But right now we're just trying to get the project itself done. So any questions? Great.
PRAC member terms.
So we've got 3 positions the way that it works with the nine members every year. 3 of the positions terms expire at the end of the calendar year. So officially December 31st, 3 people's terms are over, and this year that happens to be Lisa, Mike, and Joyce. Mike's not here to talk for himself tonight, but he is term limited. We do have that rule that you can only be on for 2 consecutive terms, and then you've got to rotate out. And after you've rotated out, you can certainly come back if you'd like. But Lisa and Joyce, I believe you have the option of reapplying. This is still your first. I know you were on PRAC before, Lisa, but this is your first term. Okay, so just letting you know. So we'll have 1 position for sure that we'll be recruiting for. Technically, what we do is we recruit any opening. This has been kind of the new thing that has happened the last couple years or so, and I think you've all received some notices about board and commission openings and things like that. And I think it said 3 positions available on PRAC, and simply that is the city's process now is technically you have to reapply even if you want to seek to be on, stay in your seat. And then there's that selection process that we go through with the mayor and the rest of the committee. So for I guess this is for Lisa and Joyce tonight, is you can either talk about what you're thinking about tonight, or you can think about it and tell us some other time, or whatever you want to do. But there is a deadline. I don't have that information right in front of me. That's sort of a moving target deadline, but it's just to encourage people to apply by a certain time. I think it's in October sometime. So if you're thinking about coming, you would like to continue service, you have to reapply, and then you go through that process. And if not, it would be good to know just so we can.
Copies of those forms that we have to fill out.
I can get you copies, no
Photocopy
problem.
it and change the date.
Need a campaign manager?
Yeah, I'd be glad to get you a copy of those.
I would be pleased to take a copy of the application.
And if you're not going to reapply, then it's just helpful to know that so we can do some recruiting. And of course, as I said, we'll have at least one opening, but one of the best ways that we've had in recruitment here is just sort of word of mouth and putting the word out to folks in the community. That seems to be good, but would love to keep the board full. So if you all can help with that as much as you're able to as well, that'd be great. So
Lisa will need another application.
We can be bribed with chocolate, right?
Well, Sean.
Nothing else to do?
Well, Bob. Actually, I won't be reapplying for the position. I feel that I am a little overstretched and have a lot of responsibilities with work right now, and I think that it's probably in the best interest of the board as well as service to our community to find someone who has a little bit more time to give than I do. So there will be
Think it
2
over.
openings, but thank you.
Think it over.
I've been recruited,
You didn't hear,
just so
did you?
you know. I have been talking.
What'd she
to
say?
you.
A bad ear.
Was she listening?
Where were we on the agenda?
Doesn't think she's going to sign.
Yeah.
I was afraid you were going to say that, but
Yeah, me too.
thanks for letting us know. Appreciate that.
Well, you'll be missed for sure, Lisa. Well, as we move on, we are on other general business. Well, Lisa thinks about it.
I don't have any other items unless anybody else has some other business items to talk about.
Anything else under that item? Let's move to PrAC member reports. Can we start with Katie? Nothing to report there?
Nothing to report?
Nothing.
Nothing.
I have a small report, but I'll do it last. You're next.
I don't think we've met since our event at the park, so I just wanted to commend the group for I think that was a brilliant idea to move it up to an event that was already existing, and I think we got to talk to quite a few community members, and I think that it was definitely worthwhile, and I hope that continues.
And it is
Good.
true that Parks Day event was wonderful, especially kickoff for the movies in the park. And so the movies in the park all summer long were very well attended. And this city is just so awesome. And the concerts in the park, the attendance was huge at every concert, but especially the last concert. Found out, there was a big parking problem for the concerts in the park, so we may have to consider some other options for that next year. Maybe some shuttle buses from somewhere, because it got pretty crazy with the parking. But I wanted to comment. I got to thinking after Denise left that she made a comment that at the McLaughlin neighborhood, how important Library Park is to them. They have the little tiny Tots Park and they have Barclay Park that's not very well used. But, they have Ladderette Park and they have the Abernethy Creek Park and they have Waterboard Park. And I think even Singer Creek
Promenade,
Park
yeah.
that's also in McLaughlin neighborhood. And I think we just need to let those McLaughlin neighbors, you do have a lot of parks in your neighborhood, and also the Promenade, which is a huge park in the McLaughlin neighborhood. So let's keep the neighborhood focused on what they do have and not what they're going to lose in footprint when the library is built at Library Park.
Roger.
I have nothing to report this week.
I have 3 or 4 things. I know the time's getting on, but just wanted to report that I attended the meetings at Glen Oak and Filbert Run, and it's true there were very different kinds of feedback in those. Nice turnouts in both. I attended the Planning Commission hearing on the Willamette Falls Legacy Project, and I thought there were a lot of speakers and there were only 2 or 3 empty chairs. I had to stand up for a while myself, but it's a small room and there weren't, it doesn't accommodate a lot of people. And all the speakers were very, very positive, and they were from the state, from the county, from the different organizations, except the last 2 came up, and I didn't want to sound negative, but I heard a warning that whatever the code turns out to be, it can't be too restrictive, otherwise it might flush out the money, the investors. So I wanted to restate that, and I forget the gentleman's name that probably didn't appreciate what I said, but that's what I heard. On the future agenda, I would like to have us consider a review of our 2014 goals, maybe November or December, just to see how we're doing there. And sometime in the future, I'm wondering if we should talk about smoking in the parks. I know with this pot thing on the agenda, on the ballot coming up in November, and the county just disallowed smoking in all of their facilities, and the state of Oregon has disallowed smoking on the beaches 300 and some miles up and down the Oregon coast. Maybe, if there's any interest, we might want to take that on and have a look at it and see what we think about smoking in our parks. It was a great Parks Day. I really appreciated that. That was a lot of fun, a lot of people there. Thanks to Denise Kai for the information she sent out on all of the activities going on. We all received that, I'm sure. And I will be absent for the October meeting in California, so you better be here. I'll be at, put those off, Lisa.
Isn't that what the teacher?
You're the principal, aren't you?
Let's just
I'll be
appoint.
out of state.
Let's have Mike do it since he's not here tonight. So
Good.
comment all
Mike.
in favor of that.
He's experienced. And that is
Certainly
my
check with
report,
Mike.
so thanks for the indulgence.
with-
One more thing I'd like to say. I think our first agenda item, I wasn't sure that went long. It went lengthy. I wasn't sure if I should have stepped in and tried to hurry that up, or should we have just listened to it. I have to say I learned a lot, people's strong feelings about it, but it did push us, way past the time we usually are moving. So any feedback?
Yeah,
the way we should have handled that?
I'll be happy to touch on that because I was going to go there before we get into to staff report. Kind of 9 o'clock's not uncommon from my experience. I think the time was perfect, but I would say I'm curious to have a few-minute discussion amongst the group because I'm very torn. There's McLaughlin. I said a lot of things each way, and you probably can't read me because I've seen the neighborhood association and their desire is different than all the other neighborhood associations. Their involvement, but on the other hand, this is an entire citywide library, and it is not a neighborhood library. So,
Joyce was saying.
and that is our park. That is the city's park, and if they are going to come in and take away a piece of that land that's also for parkland, we need to be very concerned and make sure it's done appropriately. And so I think we need to look forward in the next couple months and weighing in on this strongly, one way or the other. And I'm kind of curious where people sit on it.
I'm disappointed we didn't get it. That you didn't get a chance to see the other ideas. The two-story. That's if I can see
Wraparound,
what the
I think
names
you
were.
said.
Yeah, the two-story curved. Okay, and then they also flipped that two-story curve just to see what it would look like by taking over different parts.
Are those still out on the city website? For a while they were. the
Yeah.
5 different.
Yeah, they've been doing a pretty good job of keeping those updated on the website. Are they still on there? I haven't looked for a little bit just because they kind of moved forward, so I'm not sure. But.
And, and one of the things that we talked about at the meeting that we had, the open house that they had, was, some benefits of a 2-story is that you take up less of a footprint of the park by going up. There is an expense for the stairways and the elevator, which take up space. And my question always is, why don't you go 3 stories? And the response I always get back is that it's a staffing issue. And if we're looking for the future, just throwing ideas out there, I say if we go 2 stories, you might as well go 3, even if you close off that upper floor or just have that upper floor as meeting space, so that at some future time it could be opened up for library space if needed. That's just one of the ideas I want to throw out there. When Atkinson Church built their addition, and just really it's only 1 story, but they built an elevator in there so that there was handicap access to the old church sanctuary. It just seems crazy to build an elevator that only goes half a floor up and half a floor down. If you're going to build an elevator, make it worthwhile. That's just kind of my opinion. But if you can, get on the city website and look at those other, the curved options, and talk to your friends and neighbors and have them take a look at it too. Because if City Commission is just leaning towards those 2 options, that's only 5 people. Right. And I know that their roots go really deep into the city. But they need to hear from us too. If one of those other options seems nice to us, we need to explain why. Mm-hmm. And I understand the underground option. You can take that one off the table. That one should have never been on the table, in my opinion. But I mean, people are thinking outside the box, and that's really wonderful. But having lived across the street from there, I didn't think that it would be possible to build a big enough room underground to have the park on top of it. But yeah, think about it. And I understand that the wading pool spray park. What is the historic significance of that? And
well, my question to that was, I'd like to know. I'd like to know when the spray park was built. The original wading pool. That tells me a lot. If it was built in 70, the discussion's over. Mm-hmm. It's not historic. But I don't know the answer.
It was before then.
It was definitely old enough to qualify as being designated historic, which I believe the definition of that is anything that's 50 years or more older. And it was when we redid that, when we took out the spray park, or the wading pool, and then put in the first. I don't know if you remember, there were 2 iterations of the spray park. There was the first one, and then we redid it a couple of years ago to make it more efficient and more friendly, to user friendly.
We made it a lot safer.
Yeah. So there were some historic things that we definitely had to go through. We went through some review and had to present our design to the Historic Review Board, and we certainly went in front of the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association and shared that design with them. But yeah, I'm positive that it qualified as a historic amenity. So there's some, what that means exactly going forward from here. But we did go through that previously.
And something to be mindful of is, it was a wading pool, but wading pools have, for all intents and purposes like that, been outlawed by the state.
Yeah.
So
without being fully staffed with a lifeguard full time,
and
so that's almost
filtration
impossible to run.
systems.
Yeah.
And the slide is only there because it's grandfathered in.
Right.
That's correct.
You'd never be able to build a slide like that again, which is one of the reasons why people want to keep it. I mean, that's I think historic designation on the slide too. For all.
Well, and it's funny. I didn't realize that about the slide. I mean, it's something my kids have enjoyed, but it's funny, and it was what I tried to get to with my last question. Is they kept talking about things like staffing levels and the efficiency of the library, but they didn't talk anything about, other than that. Well, it's a citing this thing in the park, and they tried to give some talk to that a little bit. But they have an opportunity to put this major structure inside of a city park and make it truly an integrated component of a park. And I did, but I didn't hear a lot of that from this design group. It was more about how can we make an efficient building, and if you really the efficiency of building a building like this for storing books is you end up with a box. And that seemed to be a concern that came up, and it was, so they're concerned, and I understand parking and all of that, and those are all legitimate concerns, but somehow they need to then also take into consideration about how do you integrate this with the park and make it this integrated structure, because those are the successful libraries that we look around the metro area or outside the metro area. There are places that the spaces outside the library become as much a part of the library as the interior spaces. They become rooms used by library patrons for other activities associated with the library. But I didn't hear about any of that going on in any of this planning. So they could integrate those historic structures outside of the library. You know, the spray park and the playground equipment can be fully integrated. I just didn't hear a lot of that talked about. It was really about, well, is it 2 stories and do I have to build an elevator and cost, which, I mean, are legitimate concerns, but it doesn't seem to quite be entering their purview yet.
Well, also a lot about the entrance and and putting ramps up to the top of the old stairs. Just really, when I saw better pictures than they had here tonight of what that would look like, it blows you away. You think that's not the Carnegie I remember, and if we want to keep it historic, I can't see how we can build ramps up to the current entrance. And make the old Carnegie then becomes just a passageway through to the new building. And I'd really like to see a different side entrance so that that current building becomes a reading room.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What are some of the others, Daniel?
There'd have to be a different entrance or else build a ramp, because the way it is now isn't handicapped accessible. And so I think the choice would have to be going to a side entrance as the main entrance, seems to me, or else build a ramp up to the current front door.
Or do it off the back, like I was
Or the
saying.
back, yeah, the back. Yeah. That didn't go.
That's not
too
flushed
well.
out. I don't think that's flushed out.
What about a combination of Jefferson and 7th Street corner? Because, I mean, to me, okay, one of the reasons I didn't ask my question very good when I was talking about the usage of the historic building itself, and I was concerned that, you know, that was going to diminish, like the ladies from the McLaughlin Association were talking about, you know, diminishing the value of the entrance going into the old building. But if you would have some kind of a semicircle from 7th Street and Jefferson on that corner, and then I could draw it up pretty real fast.
Well, you're right. Further up, the elevation's higher. I mean, if you get closer to 7th, that elevation problem should go away.
They could still have a courtyard in back too, and keep everything. Keep the swings and everything in place, and have a nice courtyard in back. And
the trouble with the 7th Street entrance,
it's a combination Jefferson and
okay,
Street.
up
Seventh
there
Street.
where it kind of is now, is what they were saying is because of the slope of Jefferson Street, it would be hard to put handicap access, handicap parking. So and again, you know, we're thinking about parking for the entire library, and the parking lot for the library is really going to be the one that's behind Atkinson Church, the city parking lot. Besides that, it's on-street parking, right?
We're looking at a lot above.
That's how many.
I don't know how many spaces, but we do own in thinking kind of ahead, the lot just on 7th, just directly up the hill from the library, was purchased
Supposed to hold 18 or 20
a few months
cars,
ago.
So that would be
little
something
bit
to
of
think
parking.
about.
They could
Jefferson
still-
and 7th Street.
Yeah, they could still have disabled entrance that strip they wanted to put into the courtyard. I mean, the more entrances, the better. I mean, that's the way-
They have to limit the entrances.
Well, okay, right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course you're going to have some emergency exits at places, but
Well,
you got to have some.
I suppose we'll be talking about this again.
And Scott, this is your department as well, right?
Why don't we move on to the
Congratulations.
staff reports?
Yeah, I'll move through the staff reports pretty quickly, just to I guess just to put my 2 cents worth in on that discussion you just have that you just had. A couple things, and this, Sean, I think you said it well. This is a very exciting project. It's just got all kinds of great things attached to it. It is very unique in that we're doing this where it's a library and it's a park. It's and there just are unique considerations. Whereas if we had just gone out and purchased some other property and it was just going to be a library site, we wouldn't be having some of these discussions. And of course all the historic stuff with the Carnegie Center and that history, it's unique. So there's a lot to consider. I guess I wanted to touch on this just because I want to make sure that my job working with you as the Citizens Committee is to help you have a voice or provide your input or whatever it is that you want to do, which is why we set up these types of presentations so that you can hear the information and if you don't have the chance to go to the other public meetings that have been held and all that kind of stuff, to make sure that it's coming back to you, because also the parks angle is very important. And so I want to make sure that I'm doing my job, which is, I guess, the question, and you don't have to answer it tonight, but you can converse with me by email or call me or just, whatever. And obviously I'm going to keep this on as a standing agenda item, but we only meet once a month, so lots happens in the next 30 days, and that kind of stuff goes on. So what can I do to help you with, I've heard some pretty strong feedback, a lot of good discussion, really interesting observations, and you're all very thoughtful about this, so which is great. But I just want to figure out how to help with that. But also, so while you're thinking about what I just asked you, to let you know and to make sure you understand that my department, myself and other staff, Denise Kai, mostly our assistant director, have been thoroughly involved in this process. So we're it's kind of on it's all one project, but there's the library facility kind of piece of it, and then there's when we start looking at some different options, what are those impacts to the park mean if they're going to go with these different options, which is kind of where we're at right now, and that's where this discussion is kind of, I think, focused here. So we're starting to, where that's really starting to unfold, more layers of the onion are being peeled back now as we get closer to a few preferred design ideas. And it's not just PRAC, but it's being, Mo Maureen has been doing a really terrific job of going around to, I think, just about every group in the city, every board, every committee, nearly every neighborhood probably. I'm not sure, but I know that she has probably, throughout the last several months with this, kind of her and the design team have been at dozens or however many public meetings. So they've been doing a really good job. But there's a unique piece here with the Parks Committee, because it's in the park and your role in advising. But from a technical perspective, we've been advising. Denise actually sits on the project team committee. They meet very regularly. It's kind of a technical advisory committee. So when things come up about can this work or that work, then Denise is at that table continuously representing our department. And then I meet regularly with Maureen and talk about this, and we have a lot of conversation. So that is just to say, to make sure that these discussions are happening, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your voice as a committee is being represented in those discussions where, like for tonight, that kind of information that I'm just asking you, what can I do beyond what we're doing to help you make sure your voice is heard, or whatever you feel that is needed. And do we need to have a 30 minutes before our next meeting? Do we need to have a 30-minute work session, or to kind of flesh this out a little bit more, or I'm not sure. So I just kind of.
All I would say to this is I feel like we should have a sense of ownership. And I would also say that if there is something that as a group we didn't like, that if we were on the record for that, the city commission, even though those are the 5 people that they're discussing have picked and chosen so far, they're going to listen to us because that's our job, that's our task. So I don't know where I feel yet. This is fairly new. I've kind of watched it from a distance, but not thought about it from the park aspect. But we need to be very mindful of what's going on, because our opinion will count, especially if we're negative on something. If there's something that doesn't sit well, they'll stop things because we come out against it.
I think in terms of, Scott, what you just said, keeping us as informed as you can with any information. That emails are great that say, hey, this meeting's coming up, or this has been decided. I know for me personally, that really helps me, because I don't go to the city website that often. I've got a lot of other things going on in my life, and that kind of helps me focus. And then just to get back to, Sean asked kind of what we were thinking over here too. I guess I feel like to me the library, I think we're in desperate need of a very good library, and I think we have an opportunity here. And yes, I'm on the Pratt committee, but to me the needs of the library would trump the needs of the park. I would love to. I love the integration. I think of Beaverton. I used to live in Beaverton, and they've got a pretty nice setup here. There's a spray park. There's some open area right by a really nice library, and I guess to me the slide is great, and it's grandfathered in, and if we touch it, it's gone. I recognize that, but I guess my opinion, I feel like I would hate to see the slide trump, or the status of a slide trump a really nice library that I think would be a really great draw and a great symbol for the city.
I agree with that, but that being said, I also don't want the library to look like Beaverton's, like Sherwood's, one of these very suburban, ubiquitous, cookie cutter Mick libraries.
Yeah. The suburban comment kind of hit me earlier tonight. Yeah. And you said it again. That I hadn't got there at all.
Yeah. I'd like to see, I have hard copies of all the versions so far, the 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever. Where are they available? Is that on the city website, or can somebody send copies out?
I think we can get copies to you. Yeah, I can email those, and if you wanted, if you don't like doing things on the electronic stuff, then just let me know, and I can get you some hard copies. So what they presented tonight, I think, was some newly refined. I believe there was some newly refined stuff in there, even more updated than probably what you're referring to, Bob. So I'll work with Maureen and see what I can do to get to you, the committee members, some of that those copies that were presented to you tonight. And then in terms of just kind of the process going forward, I'll just, if you're interested, please pay attention to, just watch for emails, and I'll definitely keep you informed as to upcoming steps and that kind of thing. I'll have a follow-up discussion with Maureen about this conversation, and make sure that she's aware that this committee obviously is very interested in what's going on, and do what we can to keep you apprised for sure. And then, of course, when you meet, you can talk about it further next month, and we'll see where that goes.
Are they going to be doing something though with this at the October 1st City Commission meeting?
They're
Is
just
this-
seeing the presentation we saw was what I got.
think at a work session, so whatever that date is, that it's usually the
It's-
work sessions are the Tuesday in between the two regular Wednesday meetings. So
Okay,
I'm
so
not
Wednesday
looking
the
at a calendar.
1st and Wednesday the 15th are the regular city commission
The
meetings.
Tuesday in between, the week in between those, the Tuesday is the work session, which is the 7th, and I'm not positive.
Oh,
I'll need to
that's-
confirm
we
this.
have- There's too much
Yeah.
going on the 7th
Oh,
already.
that's right. We've got another issue there, don't we?
Yeah, I already have
Yeah, we'll have
another
to-
issue that night.
Maybe we can split. I'll just let you know. I think there is a work session scheduled. I know that this has come before the commission at other work sessions pretty regularly. So I'd have to double check that.
Well, Scott, I think the other angle to this that you're asking what you can do to keep us informed. and We've answered that, but I think from my standpoint, and chime in here if I'm either off base or if you agree, is that I think you have to ride the fence at commission meetings and describe opinions or things you're gathering from PrAC and at the library board. And I think it would be fair to say to those groups that we are very interested in what's happening and we plan on weighing in. We are interested, we are concerned, and we feel like we have a stake. So I think that would be a fair way.
I can convey that, yeah, and that if you were going to do so, if you're going to weigh in, and remember, so individually you have your opinions, but you have to come to a singular voice if you're going to have a motion of some type, of a recommendation or whatever the case may be, or asking your chair to write a letter, which is a way that has been done in the past to communicate with the city commission. So by the way that our city code is written, you are an advisory board to the city commission. So that kind of just go back to that as remember that piece, that you can advise the city commission, and this may be one of those times where you might want to think about doing that if you have something, if you can come to at least a majority vote to have a recommendation. So I would think you're going to want to think about doing that probably by your next meeting, because, well, that's
I'm wondering
not exactly
if that has
true.
to be done at this meeting.
Yeah, I don't think so. Everything you're saying right now is on the record, of course, and is it's going to be on the video, so we can refer people back to this discussion if needed.
Well, I think
I don't know if you're in a place right now where you're going to
right
make any
now
type
I
of
have more
recommendation.
questions than I do answers.
I agree.
Well, from what they said, I mean, they're just starting the public process.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of what by which meeting you'd want to. I guess I was getting at. I was jumping ahead in my mind by a month, which is you don't meet in December. You meet November, but that falls on Thanksgiving, so we're going to talk about that. We've the last couple of years or so we've bumped your November meeting a
To the
week
first
later,
week of December.
so it becomes sort of November-December meeting, and then you don't meet again until late January. So just thinking about that is what I was getting at in terms.
I think we need to follow this
process.
agenda carefully so we can, speaking for myself, learn more about it. I wouldn't know which way to, or which plan to support. They all have pros and cons, and for me, it's too early to come down hard on any position.
So what I'm hearing is obviously a lot of interest in this discussion. Again, I'm going to follow up a couple things and let me know if you want something in addition to this. Certainly, this is going to be back on your agenda for the time being on a regular basis. I'm going to talk to Maureen about this discussion, the further discussion that happened after those folks left the meeting, and make sure that this was brought to their awareness, the project team, that they have heard this conversation, or at least kind of know the gist of it. And then lastly is I will send to you by email an announcement of any types of meetings, whether it's at a commission work session or the library board meets just like you all do monthly, and this is their primary discussion topic right now, obviously. So those are an open public meeting as well, where maybe there'd be an interest in a representative or more than one representative attending one of those meetings and talking with the library board. I'm just kind of
Can you send us
spitballing thoughts right now, but
the
I can-
history of the spray park, the history of the pool, as to if you can find out when exactly that was originally built?
I can do that. Yeah, I don't know if I've got a lot of history other than just the year that it was opened, and
Okay.
then the year that we built
The
first
year that it was
when we
opened,
decommissioned
remodeled,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, the first time we decommissioned it, and then the update a couple years ago. So, yeah, I can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on here.
So I'll move quickly through the staff reports, and if you have any questions, just let me know.
What kind of show are you running, Bob?
It's my bedtime.
We're taking the time that we didn't spend last month.
So the monthly report was already mentioned that you received from Denise, and that's got lots of information. If you have any questions about that, please always let us know. Those are just provided as information to you. I did want to comment that Joyce mentioned the attendance at the movies and the concerts. Fantastic summer of those types of events. And the last concert we had, the pictures on the last page of that report that you were emailed. There's a picture of the Johnny Limbo concert, and I don't even think it does it justice, but it was just jam packed, and it was.
Was there an estimate?
3,500.
3,500.
Yeah.
3,500 people, and one of the great things about moving it to the EOT site was that parking would be much improved, and we've already hit that issue. So we'll be not going to talk about that more tonight because of the time, but we'll definitely be thinking about that. We're already planning and thinking about next summer, and of course we're building the stage with the high school group, and that's going to improve it even more. The pool maintenance shutdown was just completed. We reopened the pool this week, beginning of the week for our fall session, which we've got all of our activities going again, and swim lessons and everything is full. The major shutdown projects, if you haven't been by the pool, you'll notice the really big one was the replacement of what we call the curtain wall windows. That's the main south wall of the building where when you drive down 12th and you look at the pool, those are the windows you see. Cool. Those were replaced. That was something that was much needed, and both inside and outside, it just looks fantastic. So it looks great, but the functionality was a big issue there because the old windows, we actually had some of those fall out in heavy winds, sometimes right onto the pool deck, and that was not something we wanted to have happen. So we also did a bunch of other kind of cleanups and touch-ups, and we resealed and painted the pool shell, and so we've got it's an old building, but we keep making these improvements, and it's a really nice facility. It's historic now too. The Chapin Park playground, the new Tots playground that we replaced. If you've been by there, you've noticed that we still haven't opened that yet, and you're probably going, why? It's because we had put the equipment in, and we did the pad, you have to put in a new slab. Well, we discovered that there were some problems with our drainage system. It gets really wet there during the wet season, and the water doesn't go anywhere. And we thought we had connected, working with the high school kids, and we kind of didn't quite make that drainage system connection. And as soon as we had a rain, after we put the new pad in, the water was just sitting there. So we had to come back and kind of re-drill and reconnect it. And there were some issues that we had to sort of work out. It's going to be great. And we've got those resolved. And then in the coming week, we're putting in an ADA ramp connection to it, and then we're done. We'll be opening that. And you'll note, too, that that's the first playground we've installed that has that. There's different product names, but the spongy playground surface versus putting in the chips. But it looks like it's blacktop, but you step on it and you squish down a few inches, and that's the first one that we're doing this, so we'll see how that goes. And then, let's see, the last thing I had was just a quick update on the off-leash dog park sites issue, that we're still working on that. We haven't implemented the program yet. We're basically due to our summer workload and all the busyness and everything going on. We're still in the process of kind of doing the final implementation piece to that. We have one more revisit with the city commission to do, and then we just go out and basically put up the signage and start publicizing the program. So that hasn't been lost, but I know you're excited about that,
But
and
the
we are too.
neighborhoods
But
have not been contacted yet, though,
no,
either.
there's but
That piece of the puzzle needs to be done.
we talked about that, and I don't know that there was consensus that we were doing that piece. I at the last discussion we had, that I thought that the committee wasn't. I don't recall that there was.
Well, we were going to ask City Commission for direction as to whether they wanted us to do that or whether that was something that they were going to do.
I'm
or
not
if
sure that
needs
was
to
in
be
any
done
motion or anything.
through the
That's
CIC.
that's what I'm saying. So.
I think we were sitting in the field at the time.
I remember what we did say was after the trial period and before the policy was adopted formally, that there would be, the city should seek input from the neighborhood association.
That's the direction I was working under. Now,
Okay.
again, yes, that's absolutely correct. I think everybody's right, but what I heard was that the commission, or that PRAC didn't specific, because I think I asked you kind of as a final check-in point, do you want us to go directly and go through each of the neighborhoods before we go to the final implementation piece, which is going back one more time to the commission, which I'm getting on one of those upcoming agendas, and then of course the commission can redirect that if they'd like to, or we can just go and do that. Depends on kind of where they're at. So, but I heard PRAC say that you weren't interested in going and doing the neighborhood discussion prior to going back to the commission and then just saying, here's our recommendation, we'd like to go ahead and go forward.
My
with this.
recollection was that everyone felt like that was going to unnecessarily hold up what's already been an unduly long process, and they wanted to implement the trial and then go back to the neighborhoods and ask how that had worked.
I would agree, but I would also say that I wanted to go to the commission now. And if the commission during this meeting in 2 or 3 weeks says, before we implement, we also want this to occur, that being the neighborhood association, then that's their call. But I was putting it in their lap.
So that's what I was working off of, that direction from this committee.
Yeah.
I've got your recommendation. I've had it. I just wanted to let you know it. I know you've done your work on this and you've made your recommendations and have studied it and explored it, and we've talked about it a lot. And and I'm just acknowledging back to you that hasn't been lost, but there's a lot of stuff going on, and sometimes the capacity to put things forward But we're just about to do that, so I'm just kind of letting you know that your recommendation is going back to the commission. If there's anything, report, follow up, whatever, I'll let you know. Or of course, if it's goes forward as is, then I would report that as well. And then on my work plan then is to put that into place and actually, get the rules and the signs up in the parks and so forth. But we're working on it, so. Yeah, I understand there's a little discrepancy among what people are thinking, but I did hear the recommendation from the committee, and I'm moving it forward. So, and that's all. That was my short
Anything
discussion.
else to
Okay, can I just
bring up this evening?
ask a quick question about park hosts? Okay, are we fully staffed on park hosts for the winter season?
We are for now. We don't always have full park hosts through the winter, but for the time being, we anticipate that we've got those covered. So.
And is that something that this committee would like to hear from those hosts, how things are going from their perspective at their parks? Would we like to hear from these people? Or is that appropriate? Because they're the ones, with eyes and ears on the parks at all times. Or do they only come to us when there's a problem?
How many hosts do we have?
I don't think they've ever come to PRAC, actually.
I
When
would
you say
think
come to
that-
us, are you saying to staff or to PRAC?
They
or-
come to staff when there's a problem, right?
Well, we don't hope to wait for them to come to us. We work with them regularly.
Okay.
So we're in almost daily communication with
I
those
feel like
folks.
personally that's a function of the operations of the department and the staff, that I don't necessarily think that I want the park hosts coming in to discuss issues or talk
That
about
would
what's
be,
happening on
it'd be similar to one of our maintenance staff coming to you and saying, here's what I observed in the park.
I
last
agree.
week.
I feel
So
like as a
it's-
PrAC
it's-
member, I get enough feedback from you.
I agree.
Successes, failures, you tell us based on what they're doing.
We did end up filling all the spots this summer. It took a little bit of time, but we finally got all those spaces filled, and we had a really good group of park hosts, and the program is going very well. We certainly don't intend to make any changes to that. In fact, in our new parks, not the small one, not Filbert Run, but the Glen Oak, we're talking about even including a park host site, because in those sizes of parks, it's been so successful. So,
Okay, thank
so
you.
yeah, we're continuing on that.
Okay, anything else to bring up tonight? I think we are at the end of our agenda. Next meeting is October 23rd. And Scott, I guess you'll inform Mike he better show up and chair the meeting.
Are you nominated? It sounds like he's been pretty unanimously nominated to run the meeting. I think he's supposed to be here as far as I know.
So I guess we'll adjourn at, what time is it, 9:35? Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.